guys, it's Ariana. Welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, we're going to be reading some more scary stories. I'm going to be reading some no sleep stories and a true let's not meet story because I have one sitting in my inbox for quite a while now and I want to read it. And I know you guys prefer paranormal and like ghosts and stuff, but I do want to read this one because it's really creepy. So as per usual, I have my wicked candle in my room, making the whole room smell like caramel apples, and I don't really have anything to ramble about. So let's just jump on into the spooky story. So if you guys hear any loud noises in the background, they are doing all of the roofing in my area that I live in. So like my neighbor's house, like they've been here for like a month, I swear to God, and they have been nail hammering for a month straight. So if you hear any loud noises, any banging, it's the construction that's happening around here and there's nothing I can do about it. So I'm hoping my mic muffles it a bit, but it is really annoying. So the first story is from the True Scary Story section. It is from the Reddit author GrayK2222 and it's titled A Stalker in the Woods. I decided to drive to the largest forest in my county in hopes of getting back in touch with nature, needing to clear my head a little bit. I asked the local forestry office the best place for a quick walk off the main trails and was directed to this picturesque spot a little ways down the road. There was no reception, and with the rare bit of blue sky we get in the UK, I was glad I made the spontaneous trip. And I walked further down the path, I saw a clearing of trees to my right. Since the plan was to get closer with nature, I ventured into the trees of the beaten path. It was great. I explored the area, I listened to the birds as they swooped from branch to branch, even got a good 5 minutes of meditation in, before I heard what sounded like two animals fighting. I assumed they were just foxes, so I moved on. I unexpectedly reached the sand road as I emerged from the trees, but decided to walk along it for a moment as I scanned for an entry into the forest on the other side of the road. But as I looked around, I spotted a bra dangling from a bush near the road. Now, I'm aware people go to the forest for all sorts of reasons, but this did put me slightly on edge. As I turned around, I heard an electric car making its way up the road. By the time I heard it, I was about 300 yards away. My instincts told me to hide or just avoid being seen, but there was no time. So I simply gave a polite nod as they passed, and I made my way in the opposite direction. He parks up behind me, just out of view. I began to make my way off the road, intending to go explore further, but when I saw the car do a complete 180 turn, then park again, something told me to turn around and go back the way I came. As I made my way back onto the road, I spot the man in a white shirt behind the bush the bra was hanging off of. He was going in the direction I just changed course from. I crossed the road and made my way back to the forest I had arrived on the sand road from. When I got slightly further in, I turned around to check if the man continued in the opposite direction, but he didn't. Instead, I see he has also crossed the road and is making his way into the part of the woods I entered. By this point, I knew I was being followed. There was no way he coincidentally went one way, then turned to head into the part of the forest that I entered. But I kept my pace brisk rather than running. My physical health can go south quick. My knees are brittle and my ankles are weak. So rushing could cost me, especially since I had to reach my car and still drive away. As I traveled further, he was always following. Was cursing my luck as I made my way to the end of the section of the forest. Just before that path, there was a large patch of grass and shrubbery, but as I looked back, I couldn't see him. I stopped for longer than I should have, scanning the trees, and I listened intently, but I heard nothing, saw nothing. I make my way back onto the path with some relief and turn one last time to check the tree line. When I see he's not there, I begin considering if I was overthinking the whole situation. But just as those thoughts cross my mind, I see the man emerge from the opposite side of where he was previously, at the end of the tree line. He just stared at me. But I wasn't going to take any more chances, so I made my way down the path and back to my car, making sure to get out of there as quickly as possible, as I knew he would have had to head down the same tight country road. I reported the man to the local forestry office, but there really wasn't much they could do, so that was that. When I paused at the tree line and I couldn't see him, for him to be there, he would have had to emerge from where he did. He had to have approached from another angle, an angle that I admittedly wasn't checking. But I'm glad I never went further into the forest. I'm glad I followed my instinct. Otherwise, the only way back would have been through him, and God knows what his intentions were. So creepy man in the woods following him? Let's not meet again. That one was just a really weird story. Like, people are strange. Like, what is the reason to be following somebody? What is the reason to interrupt somebody's hike in the woods? Like, they're clearly just out enjoying nature. Why do you have to be creepy? Like, obviously that wasn't a paranormal story or like an overly creepy story, but it was just like odd. Very, very weird behavior to do that. The next one that I want to read is from the No Sleep section. It is from the Reddit author Rami-Wallace, and it's titled, I Work as a Deep Sea Diver. This one is a fictional story, but I really enjoyed it, so I hope you guys do too. A shiver of dread unraveled down my spine as I stared at the tattered photo, the rotting hull half swallowed in the murky mud beneath the waves. The old diver's words came back to haunt me. That thing living down there, don't want none of us coming back up alive. I chuckled then, but now, a bone-chilling fear took hold of my heart, clenching it tight. The wreck's treasure would have my pockets a lot heavier if I could haul it to the surface. The clients watched me with greedy eyes. I knew in my core I should refuse, yet the fortune called to me like a song of the damned. I took a breath that shuddered in my lungs. I'll raise her, I said. And at last, as the boat faded into the fog, I breathed deep to steady my pounding heart. I told myself I could survive this dive. I just had to keep calm and stay focused. I checked my gear one final time, and I gulped a lungful of fresh air before descending into the murky deep. Fish swarmed around me in a sparkling cloud, curious of the strange intruder in their watery kingdom. Shrimp darted in and out of coral reefs, sunlight still filtered down, a golden glow that should keep me calm. I sank deeper. The colorful fish thinned. The water grew colder, and trepidation crept in. I flicked on my lamps, flooding the murk with harsh light, revealing warped shapes hiding just beyond the glow. I descended further into the inky sea. The water pressed against me, chill and alien. I paused to adjust my gear, and that's when I glimpsed it. A bleached, bloated hand clinging to the metal hull. Weeds streaming from the twisted fingertips. Revulsion seized me as I saw there was many more. A cluster of pallid, bloated corpses fused to the broken metal. They seemed lifeless. Yet, as I watched, one slowly swiveled an eye towards me. My blood froze in my veins. I could feel a malevolent intelligence watching, hungry and hateful. I kicked away from the hull and the corpses clinging to it, rising panic consuming me. Grasping my oxygen line, I swam deeper into the wreck. Schools of gaudy fish filled before me as I explored further into the ship's rotten corridors. The water grew even colder. Columns of rust obscured my view. Glowing green and yellow algae coated the walls, casting an eerie sheen over my surroundings. I scanned for any more entities like those on the hull, but saw nothing. For now. The need for the treasure fought against that dread that chilled my insides. I forced myself to go on searching. The uncanny corpses stood staring, gazes following me. I bit back a shudder as I journeyed yet deeper into the wreck. Finally, I found an iron door leading to the ship's stronghold. With much effort, I forced it open. Peering within, I saw piles of trunks of cargo cases, many still sealed. Ecstasy and relief washed through me. This is what I came for. I began sorting through the trunks and cases, uncovering treasures beyond my wildest imaginings. Gold coins, gems, relics. I stuffed my bags full, delirious with fortune. But as I turned to depart the stronghold, a chill washed over me. I saw the corpses now blocking my way out. Dozens stared with dead, glassy eyes, some with no eyes at all. As I shifted, their limbs groaned dreadfully, seeming rusted from decades beneath the waves. Their skin looked translucent and bloated from long submersion, akin to boiling foul flesh. But what filled me with the most horror was their gazes. Though lifeless, they glared with vicious purpose. A dry cackle escaped split lips as skeletal digits grasped for me. I knew in my heart I had awakened these creatures. Now they desired to drown me due to my foolishness. Touching a gold bar, I swung at the closest corpse, striking its skull with a sickening crack. The figure clumped, but two more replaced it. I swung again and again, smashing rotten limbs and torsos. Still they came, scraping at my suit. I kicked and I pummeled, dragged by desperation and instinct. My oxygen stores were plummeting swiftly. With the last sweeping heave of the gold bar, I carved a passage and shot through the vault door. The corpses lunged, but missed my heels. I burst through the wreck's half-calf face and stroked hard to the surface, desperately thrashing my fins, and briny water seared my lungs. All beauty had fled from the tropic sea. Fish scattered as the mob chased me up from the wreck's depths. As I ascended, the water shifted from ink black to navy blue, then teal. Shafts of sunlight pierced the choppy waves, filling me with hope that I might escape this nightmare. I glanced behind, and a swarm of the creatures rose swiftly, propelled by otherworldly strength and rage. Skeletal hands grasped for me through the water, inches from my flippers. I swam with furious strokes, putting all my energy into reaching the surface, growing larger with each pull. My head burst the waves and I gulped fresh air, treading frantically as I searched for the boat. It was there, turning to recover me just in time. Hands hauled me aboard, yet not before several of the creatures surfaced, scaling the deck with horrifying speed. The crew erupted in a panic at the sight of them. I grabbed an old machete and joined the fight, hacking at rotting limbs as they climbed on us. Some fell back into the sea, only to surge up again. It seemed we'd been overwhelmed when suddenly the sun pierced the clouds, bathing the deck in light. The creatures withdrew, wailing, and threw themselves overboard. The last vanished with a final vicious hiss. The crew stared at me, stunned and bewildered. What in blazes were those things? The first mate finally called out. I slumped to the deck exhausted. Monsters, I replied. The keepers of that ship, and they don't want anyone disturbing them again. I knew I had stolen from that ship at my own risk. Yet still, the treasures in my bag would make me a fortune. If I could outrun those dead-eyed fish that now haunt me. Get us away from here quick as you can, I told the first mate. I had a feeling they'll return, and the next time sunlight may not save us. The engines roared to life, and we raced away. But I wondered, how long could I escape their wrath now that I set loose upon the sea? And that's how they ended their story. So that one was really good. I just liked it. It was a very fictional story, but it was really creepy, and I enjoyed it. So thank you so much to Rami Wallace for allowing me to read your story. This one is a true story, and they sent it to me on a link to their website. So I'm going to post their link in my description box down below, and let's just jump into it. Medium.com, and it's titled, My Little Sister and I Are Convinced We Met the Devil in Vancouver. I suppose there's a part of me that fears not being believed, even though my story is relatively mundane. So I've gone and over-elaborated every detail. I was staying in Vancouver, traveling with my little sister. I was in my late 20s, her in her early 20s. It's summer, and the weather was gorgeous. We were walking down Robinson Street when this encounter happened. After stopping at a cannabis dispensary to buy some pre-rolls, the two of us parked ourselves on the sidewalk. We were close to our hotel, and we knew that once we were in our room, there'd be an elevator ride between us and our addiction. So we were planning to stand around a while and chain smoke, people watching, until we'd had our fill of both. I've got my lighter in my hand, a joint dangling from my lower lip, but I haven't ignited it yet. Before I continue, I may have to describe the lighter to you, because it might actually matter, in some terrifying, symbolic way. I just bought it in anticipation of these pre-rolls from a place called Dank Mart, maybe a half hour before meeting the man I believed to be the devil. The lighter had a Keith Haring print on it, often called the three-eyed monster. Here's an explanation I just recklessly cut and pasted from Google. The smiley face is another frequently used character found in many of Keith Haring's works. This icon, the three-eyed face, is a mysterious figure often associated with greed and excess. Alternately, the character has been used to represent the unknown. Okay, back to my story. Excuse the indulgence. I've got my lighter in my hand, a joint dangling from my lower lip, but I haven't ignited it yet. That exact moment I flick the flame, I see a suited man bursting out of the Five Guys restaurants we were standing in from. My first thought, the moment I saw him, was, why is he in there? He doesn't even eat. When I recalled having that bizarre nonsense thought later on, while safe in our hotel room, it made me feel cold all over. The suited man acknowledged no one as he stormed out of the burger joint. He simply raised one hand high, as if hailing no taxi in particular, and demanded a lighter. This aloof behavior was kind of bemusing to me, so I waved at the suited man to catch his attention, offering the service of my lighter. He walked toward us slowly without a verbal or gestural response of any kind, and the two of us instantly began to recoil from him. His suit was metallicious. I've never seen fabric exactly like it. It was dark blue color with thin silver threads. A high-priced suit isn't a strange thing to see in Vancouver, but this one stood out to me, for reasons I'm unable to even articulate. I am loath to include the detail in my story because it seems like the most hack way a writer would describe the devil's attire, but I have to, because it feels important to be honest about that part for some reason. Anyway, the suited man stopped in front of me and said something. I don't remember what, just a few words and relatively normal small talk. I want to say he asked me, what are you doing in the city? But that could just be my imagination. While he spoke, I watched the suited man reach into the breast pocket of his suit and retrieve a comedically short cigar stub. There was barely any cigar left to smoke, and he hasn't even cut the ash off from the tip. Somehow, that last detail didn't seem to protrude my mess whatsoever. The suited man took my lighter and lit his cigar, effortlessly, like it was only a cigarette. Not once had he glanced at my little sister, who was standing directly beside me. That registered as odd to me at this point. After inhaling from his cigar stub, the suited man looked over at my lighter for a long moment as if contemplating it, then announced, "I like this." His eyes don't seem pleased though. I could tell he was about as impressed by Keith Haring's work as I was. "How much do you want for it?" the suited man asked. "It's just a lighter, man," I told him, shrugging. Like I alluded to above, I don't even like Keith Haring all that much, and I didn't mind the idea of parting with the lighter. We had other lighters in our hotel room anyway. It was just a purchase of convenience. No big deal. "Take it," I offered. The suited man ignored me and reached into his pocket to retrieve his wallet. Now he's suddenly counting hundreds out loud, his fingers flicking through the bills in a spidery way that was unsettling to watch. 100, 200, 300, 4. What the hell is going on? It took us a long moment to even realize that this was still about the fucking lighter. I forget what I said to him. Something bewildering and non-confrontational, like, "It's okay, dude." My brain was currently blue screening in an attempt to catch up with this man's proposal. Now I just wanted the suited man to put his wallet back in his pocket and walk away with the lighter. I regretted ever inviting him to approach us. There was something about standing so close to him that felt like standing on the edge of a dizzying height. He started counting much slower, emphasizing each bill as he flicked the corner into his palm. Once he counted past $1,000, my little sister blurted something out. I think it was, "Are you crazy?" I'm almost certain that's what she said. My little sister didn't sound amused or entertained by the situation. She sounded more shocked and weirded out. It was the voice you'd use with a creep at the bar. The suited man stared bloody daggers at her. It was terrifying. His eyes lit up with malice and his lips peeled back for a moment in his awful snarl. "We're talking," he growled at her. Just those two words, and they felt so loaded. Like the men are talking, he said. Then the suited man looked at me with reproach, like I was at fault for not having her under control, for letting the girl interrupt important business. "It's just a lighter," I repeated, sounding more like a person being mugged than someone being offered money. Instantly, I'd gone from feeling deeply uncomfortable with this exchange to feeling explicitly in danger. I was mugged at knife point once, actually, while visiting Melbourne as a young man. I was scared then, very scared, but this was a different type of fear. I've only felt this kind of terror once in my life. There was no adrenaline spike, as if all the fight or flight in me had been muffled somehow. It was like being soul-sucked by a dementor, as silly as that sounds. Every second spent even discussing this transaction was spiritually draining to the point of actual physical exhaustion. If we didn't leave now, I had a strange belief that we'd never have the strength to walk away. "You can have it," I insisted. "I don't need it." This was not the answer that he wanted. The suited man had already counted the entire contents of his wallet, just over $1,000. And now he was pulling more loose cash out from his pockets in a weird frenzy. He started demanding that I give him a price for the lighter, any price. He didn't seem rejected or offended, more nervous, almost like he was panicked or something. I've had a lot of friends ask me why I didn't take the suited man's money. Some almost seemed pissed at me for not taking him up on his insane proposition, if they believed me at all, that is. The obvious answer is that I'm lucky enough in life to not need to take his money, but that's not what I was thinking about that day. The vast majority of the friends which I've confided this story to, I'd bet good money that they'd have turned him down too. I'd bet lighter money on that, as confidently as I'd bet on the integrity of their souls, even the ones that exclaimed how quickly they'd have snatched the money from his hands. By the time our exchange had concluded, I felt like the suited man was actually correct. Somehow, that I had been wrong. It wasn't just a lighter. It suddenly felt explicably valuable. Not the lighter itself, which was already in the suited man's pocket, but the transaction that was being taken place. I told the suited man no, one last time. Then my little sister and I promptly began walking the other direction, saying not a word to one another. But it didn't take more than a few seconds for us to register how scared the other still felt. That's when we both started jogging briskly. We made it to the hotel and then we rode the elevator in total silence, both still shaken by our encounter. Once we got into our room, we started smoking in the bathroom. This profound wave of giddy relief came over us, like you get when you have a near-death experience. Finally, one of us asked if that man was the devil, and the other answered instantly, because we'd both been thinking it. The devil, or one of his associates, perhaps. I recall the encounter fairly often, and when I do, I'm almost surprised that I can't remember the suited man's face. There's an impression I'm left with, but when I attempt to focus my memory on it, his features begin to morph, eluding me. If I had to provide a celebrity likeness at gunpoint, I could, but I wouldn't be all that confident about doing so. I tell this overly curious gunman that he kind of looked like the character Declan from Breaking Bad. You know, that random guy who Walt demands to say his name. That exact face shape, that same style of black facial hair, with a touch of silver in the hair, yet also slightly younger in appearance overall. That's the best I can do. And I'm not confident in my description, isn't simply by byproduct of my imagination imprinting on the memory. This is a story that feels both silly and underwhelming to tell, but it still makes me uneasy to think about it. Sometimes I catch myself wondering if the suited man was trying to buy my soul from me. And that's how they ended the story. So that one I just found really interesting, really creepy. I have had encounters though with people where I've met them and I've been in a room talking to them and I just get like bad vibes. And I feel like that is kind of what you experienced. Like I didn't portray the person that I was speaking to was like the devil, but I definitely had like a really sick feeling just talking to them. And I was like, you have no good intentions and I'm getting really low energy from you and you're just bad vibes all around. So I just like removed myself from that situation. And that's kind of what you did. So that was a really creepy story. Thank you so much for allowing me to read your story. So if you guys want to read any of the stories that I read on the channel, then you guys can go into my description box down below. His website will be posted so you can read their story. If you want to check out any more of these authors' works, you guys can definitely go to their pages and scroll through them. But this is where I'm going to end the video. So if you guys did make it to the end of the video, please leave me your favorite Halloween emoji. If you guys did enjoy this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and a comment down below so that you guys help my channel, because the more that you guys interact with my content, the more the algorithm picks it up and the more followers and people coming to watch my channel I get, and that really helps me. So if you guys did enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below for more content like this. And if you guys have any creepy stories, scary stories, let's not meet stories, or paranormal stories in general that you want to send me, feel free to reach out over Instagram or you guys can email me, and I will see you guys at the next video. Bye.